everybody, and welcome to episode 38 of the Detroit Lions franchise. We're going back in here. This is going to be a shorter video. We're going to be using this just to review things. Of course, we found out last week that we have made the playoffs as the 5th seed and our second year as head coach. So a lot of improvements over last year, finishing the season off 10-6. And we had a rough game last week against the Jets, unable to score a touchdown, so we already know that we have a lot of improvements going in to our first playoff game in this series. Now, we do have a couple upgrades going into it. TJ Hawkinson is a big one. We're going to work on his blocking a little bit. I like to go in the blocking archetype because you'll usually get some, you get a good mix of all the different blocking stats, which could end up being really beneficial. And I just think that if we can get TJ Hawkinson into that elite tight end blocking category, he will truly be the full package. Now we have DeAndre Swift again after his drop last 2 weeks ago. We're going to put it into the pass catching category. And then, of course, rookie middle linebacker Terrence Kramer. When you get a middle linebacker, you want to just shove every single point into field general. I do truly believe that that is the best archetype to work for your young linebackers. We also have second year receiver Kerry Haynes. This is another big upgrade for him. He came into that starting job about halfway through the season, taking it over Valdez-Scantling, and he's been phenomenal in the past couple weeks. And we know what he's capable of bringing, so I really do enjoy having him in the starting lineup, and we're hoping that he can compete for an even bigger role next year. Now, Paul Kirkland and then Paul Poole, a development slot receiver that we really like. I do believe we're going to end up going into the deep threat archetype, work on his mid to deep route running. And that's exactly what we do, +1 deep route. So he also ends up having 2 points, so I think we're going to double up here. It's been a while since I've recorded this as I'm doing a post-recording here, and that's exactly what we did here. So +1 speed as well, which I think is going to bring him up to a 92 speed with a 91 acceleration and 92 agility. He has the potential to be a really good receiver for us with a lot of athleticism. Now, we're going to be going through a whole bunch in this video. We're going to go through our season stats as well as the league season stats. We're going to be going over, I do believe we don't touch the draft class in this one. So this one's going to be a really big focus on what's going around in the league, as well as what our plan is going to be going into next, or I guess we've already simulated the week, but going into our first playoff game. Now, Philip Shelby had a very good year. The interception numbers are a little high. They were around 16. We've just missed them. But I think he had a really good year. His biggest improvement going on into his third year in the NFL, second year as a starter, is just consistency. But more importantly, I want to see him have more poise. And I think that's going to come with playtime. I don't want him to feel so flustered in the pocket after a sack or two. I don't want him to then go, feel under pressure or lose confidence after a simple mistake, which I think is what some of the things he suffered from throughout his first season starting. We also went over DeAndre Swift, who had a massive season for us. His first 1,000-yard rushing season as a full-time 3-down back was phenomenal. Sammy Watkins here also returns into the 1,000-yard category. Hadn't done it since his second year with the Buffalo Bills. He's got 1,070 yards. Now we also have Rodney Foreman. He did improve a little bit on more catches, had more touchdowns. He did get to play the full season, but I still want to see more from Rodney Foreman. It took us about until week 8 before we started seeing the Rodney Foreman we felt like we saw during his rookie season. Now he is up to an 82 overall, so he is developing. But if it's going to happen for him to become a superstar receiver, we're going to have to see him become more consistent. Now, there was also a big learning curve between him and Philip Shelby. I do believe that did affect how they performed with each other. Going into this, he got used to a guy like Matthew Stafford, who was a very good deep thrower, very accurate, but not only that, could absolutely reach the end of the field if he wanted to. And, Philip Shelby had a lot to improve on, especially in the deep throwing category. He just was not as accurate, didn't know how to put enough touch or too much touch. He just didn't have that feel for the ball until after, I would say, week 10. And around that time is when we saw Rodney Foreman really start to take over and have himself some pretty big games. Now, on the other hand, the offensive line, I believe, performed well. They did better than they did last year. I think Marlon Mason, who led the team in sacks with around sacks allowed with around 7, he's still got time to grow. I'm not too stressed about it. And when we go over the league stats, you're going to see that his 7 does not go near to some of the more, the pass protectors who allow the most amount of pressure. Defensively, Terrence Kramer had a phenomenal season as a true side-to-side linebacker. He had 122 tackles. I do not remember where he ranks throughout the league, but I do recall it being pretty high. So I'm really hoping that it's going to be enough for him to get a development upgrade. Other than that, defensive line, I really enjoyed what we were capable of doing. Trey Flowers, who we just went over, didn't have as much of a productive season as he did last year, but 10 sacks nonetheless is still very good. Guys like Deshaun Hand, who had a breakout season in both the run stopping and in the sack category. I really liked guys like Josh Sweat, what they brought to the game. He brought consistent pressure, perhaps our most consistent pass rusher. The sacks might not show it, but it felt like he was in the backfield every play. Now, one thing I want to improve on is I think we need more playmakers in the secondary. Kevin King was good at points and not so good in other instances. He dropped a lot of wide open picks. And I want cornerbacks, when they get an opportunity to get that ball in their hands, they're going to take it and go with it. Now, I think Kevin King did perform well overall, and I think his size had been very beneficial for him. We saw, especially during the last couple weeks, he was able to get a couple big deflections on some deep balls, on some high throws, and it really started to show the importance of having length at cornerback. But overall, I need more playmakers, and that does not necessarily mean that means we're going to be moving on from Kevin King. I thought he was pretty good, but if there is going to be somebody in the draft that we really like, or somebody in free agency that we know can go out there and is an absolute, ball hawk, I think we're going to have to take that, because turnovers on defense are key. And currently, Jeff Okudah had 3 this season, but we need another guy. And I just think, being able to create turnovers on defense can really change the game offensively as well. And I think in the long run, it could help guys like our guy, Philip Shelby, be able to put himself in better situations on offense, not be pinned down so deep, and be able to make the touchdown drives. So we're going to move on here to the NFL as a whole, all the stats. And you can see Nick Foles, it was number 2 in the league at throwing. You can see Tom Brady is still kicking it with an 86 throw power. Philip Shelby is up there. And we're seeing a lot of usual names, but guys like Charles Hartman were pretty interesting, leading the league in touchdown. Charles Hartman, a rookie with, I believe, 43, and then Nick Foles with 45. But, this was a big throwing season. But the unfortunate news is that Philip Shelby was tied for first in the interception category with Jared Goff. Now, I don't really mind it because of the yard difference that we had between him and Jared Goff, which was about 500 yards. So I think that if we can keep moving the ball, but at the same time cut the turnovers, I think Philip Shelby's got a bright career ahead of him. Running the ball, we see a lot of big names right away. Ezekiel Elliott, Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, Mixon, Derrick Henry, and of course DeAndre Swift is up there as well. Saquon Barkley is in the 1,000-yard marker. Now we have a lot of big name running backs who are a little surprising that they didn't make it. Guys like Nick Chubb, but if you look at Nick Chubb compared to every other running back with big yards, he's got about half their snaps. So I'm wondering if that's the Kareem Hunt effect in the depth chart. But a lot of great names. Now, Ezekiel Elliott almost averaging over 100 yards a game. Alvin Kamara as well. They've got a lot of touchdowns. But you know what? I think James Robinson also had another good year. And it was definitely an interesting one. And even with only 378 snaps, leading the league in touchdowns was Nick Chubb with 18, which is absolutely incredible. Now, if we keep going and looking here, that's the averages per game. All the top running backs are up there. But now it's time to move into the receiving category. And look at Tyreek Hill with 109 receptions. One of only 2 receivers with 100 receptions. And he leads the league in grabs. as well as yards, and I believe he's in the top 3 for touchdowns as well. So Tyreek really had a phenomenal season, perhaps the best of his career, but a couple sneaky players up here, guys like Philip Dorsett, Jacoby Myers, even a Troy Rushing, who's only a 76 overall rookie receiver, a second-year receiver at this point, Chad Arrington, who we've faced in the past. Just a lot of good stuff I like to see. Stephon Diggs up there, so 2 1,000-yard receivers for the Buffalo Bills. And then the usual names, the Julio Jones, Odell Beckham. You can see Sammy Watkins up there, but Debo, Amari. You see all the big names. But it's really cool to see that a couple of guys who are lower overalls, and you're going to see Juwan Winfrey right under Corey Davis here, lower overalls getting the big yardage and leading the league. And I really think that's what I love about these simulation seasons, or these franchises, is that anybody can perform. And even on computer teams, it is not necessarily always about the overall. And as I said, Tyreek Hill in the top 3 for touchdowns. Look at Rob Gronkowski still balling out at 33 years old. He's still got some pretty decent stats. Now, it looks like his run blocking took a big hit. But nonetheless, still an impressive season with over 700 yards. You can see Rodney Foreman up here. Now, we're looking at the game played, and this one was surprising to me. Courtland Sutton, 16 games played, and he does not achieve 1,000 yards. He's a very good receiver. A little bit surprising there, and it doesn't look like he was unhealthy, right? He played 16 games, 999 snaps. If you look at it compared to some of the higher snap guys, there's not many people who are above 1,000, and if so, not too much above 1,000. So Courtland Sutton was a little surprising. Here's DJ Moore, a phenomenal receiver with only 660 yards, but 16 games played. Now, I don't know what that means to you guys, but to me, that possibly means that there's going to be receivers on the block looking to move over. When you got superstar receivers like that only getting 600, 700 yards, they just do not want to be around. And as I said, we went through the offense really quickly. I'm not going to go down the list, but there's a couple guys with over 15 sacks a season. So when it comes to Marlon Mason giving out 7, it is not too bad. Terrence Kramer is in the top 5 for tackles, but a lot of guys in the 100 tackle section. Now we're looking at the tackles for loss, and in my head at this point, I was just kind of trying to break down what is going to be taken into account if Terrence Kramer is going to get an upgrade. Now I think he's in the right range for the tackle category, but I'm not too sure what else Madden takes into consideration. Now, a big decision I have decided to make going into the season that I haven't talked about yet is going to be trait regression. Now, the reason I did that was because I do not want, guys who are, in their late 30s, low 70 overalls or mid to high 70 overalls still having superstar abilities. It just does not make sense to me. I don't think a guy rated in the high 70s should have a superstar ability. I think regression happens to every player, and they eventually they start to lose what made them so good. You look at Drew Brees being unable to throw the ball deep in the latter part of his career. Peyton Manning was the same thing. Now, it's not that I don't think they're no longer good. I think Drew Brees, even in his final seasons, still had a great football mind. But at the end of the day, when you start losing some of the intangibles that made you such a phenomenal player, I don't think, even in this series, that you should keep some of those abilities. And you can see Nick Foles does get the MVP award, and we get the third in the Coach of the Year, which is pretty awesome. But that is one reason why I've turned off trait regression. Another reason is because I have also lowered the amount of X Factors, superstars, and I kept the stars. Just because I don't think there's 50 guys who deserve an X Factor in the NFL. It's just they don't. And I don't also think that there are 50 superstars in the NFL. Now, I think there are a lot of stars, but I think there is a big discrepancy between stars, superstars, and then the guys who deserve X factors. Like, I do believe there's a big difference between a guy like Pat Mahomes and a Baker Mayfield, who I believe Baker at this point has a superstar, but I think there should be I think you can ask anybody. You watch them play on the field, and there is a huge difference between a Baker and a Pat Mahomes. And I think the X Factor ability should be held for the Patrick Mahomes type players, and the superstars. Well, there's a lot of superstars in this league. There absolutely is. But, I just wanted to make sure that there was a true gap between, who was considered the best in the league or who deserved to develop the fastest in the league. Now, I also think that if a guy like DJ Moore only has 600 yards, the unfortunate truth is, if that happened in real life, well, people would start wondering if he's as good as he is, and therefore he would not deserve that superstar ability. Now, it's tough to say because DJ Moore absolutely does deserve the superstar ability, but, that's just the contrast. Things happen in this franchise that I don't control. There are great players who are not going to put up great stats, and if that were to happen in real life, then they would start, losing some of that high status that they hold. And I really wanted to make sure that we did that, but I also wanted to make sure that with trait regression, we would get rookies coming in with high traits, and we would give everybody the opportunity that if they put on a good season, even at a 76 overall, if they're 25 years old, 76 overall, and they go ahead like Juwann Winfree, for example, and put up over 1,000 yards receiving, that they can go ahead and get themselves a trait and see if they can develop into a better player. I do think that the traits are obviously a big part of where things go in this regression, in this development part. Of course, the higher development you have, the better off you are. So I wanted to give everybody an equal opportunity. If there's a receiver out there having big games, then he should have the opportunity to go and get a star development. And it was either I turn off trait regression or I raise it to an abnormal amount. And, by the third or fourth season, we're just going to have teams full of 90 overall players. And I just don't think that was realistic. But we went over the awards. Unfortunately, nothing major for us. Terrence Kramer not getting the Defensive Rookie of the Year like I hope so. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and make sure to keep watch because we're in the playoffs next episode, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Peace out, guys.